There is an interesting pattern in the history of human expectations. People rarely get the hero they expect. Welcome to the Sebcast, the home of the #1 network for your life. This is where we hear stories anew, look deeper, and discover together how Jesus works today. Think about how people view leadership. We tend to believe that the strongest person is the one who changes the world, the one with the most power, the most influence, the biggest voice. But when you look back at the real moments that changed history, it often looks different. Nelson Mandela, for example, did not come from a palace, he came from prison. Martin Luther King Jr. did not have a political position, he had a dream. Mother Teresa did not build a world empire, she worked in the streets of Calcutta. The world often expects power in one form, but real change sometimes comes through a completely different form of power. This brings us to one of the most surprising ideas in the Bible. For centuries, many people in Israel waited for a Messiah, a deliverer who would restore God's people. The expectation was quite clear: this leader would be strong, bring victory, and defeat the enemies of God's people. But the Bible presents a radically different picture. In Isaiah 53, 3-5 we read, "He was despised and rejected by men, a man of sorrows and acquainted with grief, but he was pierced for our transgressions, he was crushed for our iniquities." This is a strange description for a hero, not a conqueror who crushes his enemies, not a king who rules with power, but someone who suffers. This was exactly the problem for many people in Jesus' time. They expected a Messiah who would change the world with power, but the Gospels tell of a Messiah who works through love, sacrifice, and even suffering. And this is where the biblical idea of power looks different from the world's. True power is not always the ability to dominate others. Sometimes, true power is the ability to give to others. It is the power to serve, the power to forgive, the power to love when it is hard. And when people begin to understand that kind of power, it changes how they live their lives. It alters their perspective on success, status, and relationships. Because if the greatest change in the world occurred through sacrificial love, then even small acts of love can contribute to a larger story. And this is exactly where faith becomes practical. It doesn't just begin in big theological ideas, but in how people treat each other in the everyday rhythm of life. This is why community is so vital in the Christian life. We learn this new way of living not just by listening, but by practicing it together in our homes, workplaces, and friendships. This precisely exemplifies what we mean by a #1 network for your life, a community where people realize that true power does not reside in force, but in love that transforms lives. Because sometimes the hero who changes the world does not come in the form people expect, but in the form the world actually needs. The world teaches us that success means coming out on top, getting recognition, and having influence. But Jesus shows a different way, the way of service. Today, deliberately choose one place where you can serve someone else without expecting anything in return. Help a colleague. Listen to someone who is struggling. Do something for your family without seeking credit. True influence often begins where we are willing to put others first. Until tomorrow, take care.